So, Alastair, I guess the first question I want to ask is how confident are you with Burnley this season?
Tricky one, that. My son, Rory, works in football. He's got his own company, does a lot of football data analytics.
Yeah.
And he says our stats are quite good in terms of how we're playing. And we did have a lot of injuries at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, there's a little bit of a gap opening up down the bottom. There's 4 or 5 clubs that are looking like we might be there at the end in the mix. And there's all this stuff going off the field about whether the club's going to get sold, and if so, who to, and whether the manager's happy and all that stuff. So it's not been a perfect start to the season, but I'm always hopeful. No, I'm not always hopeful. But I think we'll be all right.
Well, I'm a Newcastle fan, so I can kind of relate to.
Yeah, I think you're going to be down in the mix.
Yeah. Well, especially it's a very toxic club at the minute. I think with the whole Mike Ashley situation and trying to sell the club, there's all that kind of noise in the background. It's a takeover going to happen. Steve Bruce getting a lot of sticks. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that we're kind of managing to grab a few wins here and there at the minute. But whether we can kind of.
No, I have Brendan Foster's a very good mate of mine.
Oh yeah,
and he's a Newcastle season ticket holder, and we have a lot of banter about that because this thing about Newcastle being a big club.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Have you got the highest away end in the country though?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're climbing up there, bloody hell. Yeah. Have you missed going to the football? Like because you go
a lot
now and again. Yeah.
Do you know what's really interesting? I haven't missed. I thought at the start I was missing football.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually missing Burnley, and I'm also. It's not just I'm missing Burnley. I'm missing the whole thing, the whole kind of atmosphere and people and rituals and all that stuff. I actually have been to games because I sometimes do the commentary for our website, for the club website. So I'm going to Arsenal next week, for example. But it's just not the same. It really isn't the same. I mean, I think for the players, it's interesting. Some of the players, I'm quite friendly with a lot of our players, and some of them hate it, not having fans. Some of them are kind of, fairly chilled about it because it's just, they're like when they're playing, some of them just really like to be in the zone. It's almost like they don't want the distraction of the noise and the crowd and all that. So, but I've really missed it. Mm-hmm. But I've not been watching much on telly. I've watched all of our games, but not much else. Yeah. I didn't even know the Champions League was on the other night. I was channel hopping and just popped up. There was Liverpool, but
yeah, I found it hard to watch. It's just it's difficult to follow about the fans. It's kind of got that testimonial feel to it, Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about it? Do you think it's okay with some fans coming back into the stadiums?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I think that, I do. And interesting enough, I mean, you can get. I mean, I know this from when we were in the lower league. That when we were down like in the 4th division and stuff. You can get good atmosphere going. When you go this, if you ever go to a non-league game, you get good atmosphere. You can get good atmosphere with a small crowd. Mm-hmm. But 2,000 in a 60,000 seater stadium is going to be quite bleak, I think.
Yeah, man, 2,000 fans at Old Trafford. It's not going to make much of it, when you've got the capacity. I don't know if they could kind of do a percentage of the stadium might work a little bit better, but. Turf Moor's a difficult. I've been there once before. It's a difficult place to go for as an away supporter. Was it a Monday? I think it was a Monday. Well, yeah. Well, I think it was a couple of years ago. We lost 1-0 to Burnley at home.
It's a good away end though. It's got good. It's very old fashioned. I know that, but it's got good noise. It's got good. The noise bounces off the roof quite a lot, I think.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But how have you been doing this year anyway? This 2020 weird year. Obviously, you've got your book that's come out, but how's it sort of been the whole COVID experience for you?
Quite difficult, to be honest. I mean, it's a lot. I'm not moaning. I'm really not. But because a lot of people have had a lot worse, and a lot of people have died. But yeah, a lot of the kind of fundamentals in my life have changed. Because I mean. I used to, I was traveling an awful lot. A lot of my work is abroad, and we, Fiona and I travel quite a lot as well. We go to Europe a lot. So that's kind of very much been You know, I had some fantastic trips in the diary. I had Nashville. I've never been to Nashville before. I was booked to do a speech in Nashville. I had a trip to Australia I was meant to be doing. I had a trip to Ethiopia I was meant to be doing. I do a lot in the Balkans, and I've not been there now for over a year. So yeah, that's been strange. And then I've not minded being. I mean, this is the top of the house. I've got an office at the top of the house, and you know, it's actually been quite nice that. I mean, Fiona and I have been together 40 years now, and actually we've gotten really well most of the time, which I don't think most couples can say. I mean, I'm picking up a lot of stress signals from different parts of the world. But no, we've gotten really well. We've got our dog, which she's only 2, but she's now just absolutely convinced that we live here 24 hours a day. We never go away, and she's always with us. And I think that's quite, you know, so that's all been quite nice. And then, but just that sort of sense of, you know, looking at my diary sometimes, and when I see, I mean, you know, no offense intended, but when it's Zoom meeting, Teams meeting, Zoom, I think, oh no, I've just had enough of this. And then you're just not going out and seeing real people in real situations. Yeah. I found that difficult.
Did you have to take part in any Zoom quizzes?
I'm not into that. I'm really not into that. No, you're not going to get
novelty wore off quickly, I think, with the Zoom quizzes.
No, I'm not into that. I'll tell you what, and then the other thing with lockdown that was really about, it's come back now, but last year, before the COVID, I really got into cold water swimming.
Oh, nice.
And and we've got the Lido just around the corner, Parliament Hill, 60 metre long, which is fantastic facility. And last year I did my first full winter. Like every day I was at home, I went there. And so the two periods when the Lido was shut, I found that quite difficult actually, because it was like, that has so become part of my rhythm, 7 a.m. round to the Lido. But that's come back. I feel better for that. I've definitely been up and down on the mental health front through the.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's normal, you know, whether it's just that would have happened anyway with me because I'm always up and down, or whether it's been exacerbated. Hard to tell.
Yeah, no, well, I've been exactly the same. I had a really bad bout of depression in 2016, and I went for a few years now where I feel like I've been doing okay. But when it was the first lockdown, and everything that I kind of was using to keep myself going, whether it be the gym, whether it be seeing friends, whether it be going to this place or that place, or, you know, the positive things I'd use to keep my mental health good. When everything was closed at the same time and I was kind of left alone in my flat with my thoughts, that's where I noticed it creeping back again. So no, I think this year in general has been definitely an up and down kind of place. Yeah. So
no, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think it's. I had, but the first lockdown, I actually really enjoyed the first few weeks. I think it was all kind of quite interesting, and actually just sort of, I almost felt released a little bit for not having to travel, not having to do too much. You know, somebody's put it brilliantly. Says, you know, what's fantastic is you can just say no all the time now, which is quite nice. But then I definitely had a dip. And then I had a really bad manic spell. I was like really wild, you know, I was quite wild for a few days. And then I went, you know, right down to the bottom again. And then having the book, I mean, it was interesting, that whole, because I did the book, the depression book, a while back. We had a publication day set for May. And I'm very kind of, you know, when I've got something like that, I just want to get it done.
Yeah.
And kind of move on to the next thing. And of course, so then we had this discussion with the publisher, should we delay it, shouldn't we? I didn't want to delay it. They felt we should because the shops weren't open. There were no events and all that. So we delayed it. It was probably the right decision in the end. But we delayed it till September. And then, of course, so I'm sort of struck lucky a bit in that, you know, the shops were open and all that, but hardly any events. Interestingly enough, you know, that I felt at the time I needed to get it out before the whole COVID thing took over everything. But actually, I think the mental health, interest in mental health, desire to understand mental illness, focus on depression and so forth. I think that, you know, obviously I want to promote my own book in a way, but I mean, I do actually think that the need for stuff like that is now, you know, greater than ever. I think a lot of people are struggling. You know, what I wanted to do with the book was actually share with people, one, what it's like getting depression, and mine, where I think it comes from, but also actually how can we help ourselves and how can we help other people.
No, absolutely. And the book Living Better, so that was all written pre-COVID, so that was, you know, so it was just
yeah, I mean, I did an extra chapter during the first lockdown about COVID, and it's the last, it's just like it was really sort of the mental health implications of COVID. But yeah, no, the book was done before COVID.
So because I think especially for men, it's a lot harder to talk about, isn't it? Like I think slowly, you know, men are starting to be able to sort of open up about it, but it's still a weird thing, and it's this whole idea of what they say toxic masculinity in terms of expressing how you feel. Because, you know, I've known, so, you know, I'm 31 years old, and I've known 5 people that have sadly taken their own lives, but 4 of them were men. And interestingly enough, the 4 guys that did it, it just happened like that. There was no warning signs, no sort of, it just, everyone was shocked that it happened, and no one would have thought that they were going through anything. There was no inkling or nothing. And I feel like it's just that big part for guys. It is keeping that, almost that suffocating feeling that you're keeping this feeling inside, that you feel like you can't share.
I think there is a lot of that. Although, you know, the recent suicide that I've kind of been aware of was Tory MP Owen Paterson, whose wife took her own life. And, you know, he said that they just had, you know, they had no idea. They had no idea that it was coming. It was like she seemed absolutely fine. So I don't think I agree with you that it's, you know, with the statistics bear this out, that more men take their own lives than women. And I think it's generally true as well that women are much more open about feelings, emotions and so forth than men. But I think women struggle sometimes too as well. And I also, I've never worried about being open about it. It's really quite strange. I mean, it's just never bothered me. I think it might have helped. My older brother had schizophrenia, and that was kind of quite an introduction to mental illness. So then, you know, when mine came along, it was like, well, you know, it wasn't as bad. And also, I'd always been very proud of my brother, the way he kind of managed it and dealt with it. But I'd never, ever, 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 never felt I've had to hide anything about it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's something like I feel quite open about talking about it, say to you or people that I wouldn't know too well. But like, if it came to sort of being with my mates watching the football, I would feel I wouldn't like to talk about it in front of my closest mates. I'm not sure why that is, because they're the people that know you the best and feel you then accept it more. But
yeah, I think what that's about. I mean, I don't think I would necessarily, if I was with a group, if there was one there that I was particularly close to, I might just say, "Oh, I'm really, you know, really struggling today, really struggling." The thing with me, though, I don't know if it's the same with you. The thing with me, people can notice with me. I mean, I'm not very good at hiding it. You know, and I also find, I always find there's something behind the eyes.
Oh yeah, the lights go out. Yeah,
I see it in other people, and I see it in myself, that there's just something not there. And the other thing with me, my voice goes very weak. Literally, the physical voice goes weak. So my family can always tell. People who know me well can tell. And I just tend to say, like, I'm really struggling, and, you know, I had quite an interesting thing happen recently. We bumped into somebody we know reasonably well, who knows that I get depression, who's actually read the book, and but she's, you know, not a close friend, as it were, but somebody that we know quite well. But she is a very good friend of a close friend of ours. Yeah. And anyway, I bumped into her just out walking out around and about here, and I was really not in a good shape, and I was wearing this. I've got this Warrington Wolves trading hoodie, right?
Nice.
And as I saw her coming towards me, I just kind of slowly pulled up the hood and kind of brought it right over my head. I just didn't want to see it. It wasn't personal. I just didn't want to speak to anybody. Anyway, she saw me and came over and sort of chatted to me. I just wasn't engaging at all. I was just, you know. Anyway, she phoned up this mutual friend of ours. Oh, I couldn't believe he was so rude. But it's just like, you know, when I don't want to talk, I don't want to talk.
Yeah, that's it. And it's almost like it's that you just don't have that energy to do it. You just can't bring yourself to do it. And
I think it's also the, you know, sure I'm sure you get this, that when the energy thing is so important, so when you don't have energy and you have to do something that requires energy, I always feel like when I'm trying to engage when I don't want to, I feel it's like you're driving a car and you're going up you're either going up a hill and you can't get into a low gear,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going on the flat and you can't get into a high gear. You just, and when you stop, the exhaustion is just so kind of,
Yeah.
overwhelming. So you're trying to save the energy, really, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's, you have friends and family will say to me that probably don't understand. I know they mean well. I know I've got a dog, so I'll be like, if you're not feeling too great, say go walk the dog, walk it off. You're feeling. And it's like, I wish it was that simple where you could just kind of walk it off.
Sometimes stuff
Sometimes,
like that.
sometimes it can help. Yeah.
I do find the dog. Our dog's amazing. She definitely works it out when I'm not feeling great.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, she just knows, and she's got this thing of she puts her head on my leg when I'm sitting, say, just sitting on the sofa or sitting in a chair. She'll just sort of put her head on my leg, and she just it's a strange thing. She definitely knows.
Yeah.
When I'm not feeling great. So no, things like that. I found in the last few days since the Lido was opened again, I've definitely improved up here with this cold water swimming back.
Yeah.
So I think those things can help, but where I agree with you, it doesn't help when people tell you what helps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, did you find writing quite helpful? Was that quite therapeutic?
Oh yeah, I always do.
Yeah. Cheaper than therapy, writing.
Yeah, although you see in the book, I do a lot of writing as part of the guy that I see. He makes me write a lot, just for him. I write about themes. I write, whether it's, there was a period when he used to get me to write down my dreams as soon as I had them.
Right.
That was quite interesting. Then he asked me sometimes to write about themes. I did one. I think I published part of it in the book. He asked me once to do this essay on humility. Another one on forgiveness, stuff like that. So I write quite a lot for that. But yeah, I write tons. I mean, I write every day, loads of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you stay well informed of what's going on in the news and stuff, but I've kind of, it's got to the stage where I've had to stop watching the news because I've felt like the more I watch the news, the more I realise that this is having a really big impact on my mental health.
You'd be amazed how little I watch the news.
Oh, really? Yeah.
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 I mean, I'll give you a little motto for when you're not feeling great: read books, not newspapers. Listen to music, not the news.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. If I'm not feeling great, I still want to read, but I don't read newspapers. And in the morning now, I mean, Fiona's much more. She's really into the whole kind of. I'm not saying I'm not into COVID. I am, interested in it, obviously, but I'm just not. At the start, I was watching all the briefings, I was reading everything, I was looking it up, I was searching stuff. But now I just think I don't trust the government. I think they talk a lot of crap. They just get me angry. Mm-hmm. So what's the point of that? So maybe one day a week I'll listen to the Today programme. Mm-hmm. I watch Channel 4 News if I'm in, but that is about it. And we don't get papers anymore, which I feel bad about in a way, apart from the New European, because I write for it, and Fiona still writes for The Guardian. But I just find there's too much. There's too much of it, and it's too, and I'm quite active on social media. I don't think I miss much. I never miss much in terms of big stuff.
No. You find out what you find out on Twitter, and you can find it all out,
And the other thing I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing this. I did German at university, and I lost a lot of it. So I'm doing this advanced German course with the Goethe Institute, which I'm absolutely loving. So I'm listening to a lot of German podcasts and news bulletins and stuff at the moment.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
And I've just translated the book into German with my tutor.
Ah, nice. Yeah, so that'll be, well, hopefully you'll be able to go and Germany and do a little book tour with it. So.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah,
that'd be really good. Yeah, no, I am avoiding it as much as the news is all right. So I used to, as much as I used to like watching Kate Burley on Sky News, I can't bring myself to doing it much anymore. Because you start to, you have 15 minutes of COVID, then they just give you an update how Brexit's doing. Then you got Donald Trump saying what now? Okay, then you find out about this divide with the Black Lives Matter movement and the anger there is, and the rightly so the anger there, but the divide that things are causing. You watch the news for half hour, you're like, wow, I feel really rubbish right now. Yeah. So no, it's glad to good to know that you're doing okay. I mean, you say that with stuff with the government as well. Do you feel like the way it's all been handled? I suppose even with this tier system, do you think it's been handled? How do you think it's been handled in general? I suppose.
Oh, I think it's been shocking. I think it's been truly shocking. Um, and I mean, I thought at the start it was such a, I really did want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I think I did for quite a while. But now, I mean, they just talk such crap. I mean, like, even this thing about the vaccine, which, like, just let it speak for itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly a really positive development, but then they try to dress it up as we wouldn't have got it without Brexit. That's a lie.
Yeah, I saw that.
We've beaten the rest of the world. Well, it's not actually strictly true. It's been made in, American companies working out of Belgium, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
and then with the Brexit stuff going on alongside it, I just think, no, I think we're in a real mess, and I think part of the problem is having a government led by somebody like Johnson, who, they address the world as they want it to be, not as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm not pretending that any of this stuff is easy, but I don't know. I can't really point to anything that I think they've handled really, really well. I really can't. And I hate doing that sort of, wouldn't have happened in my day, but there's an awful lot that goes on day after day after day. But you just think, how are they doing that? Two, how are they getting away with that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the stuff with these COVID deals, I mean, if there isn't at the end of it, I actually think we're talking about pretty major league corruption going on here.
Mm.
And if I think back, to our time, when an SNP MP stands up and claims that the Labour government has sort of, cash for peerages, we've taken money for peerages, right? And the police are all over it,
Mm-hmm.
right? The whole thing bollocks, but the police are all over it, literally interviewing prime ministers about, da, 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 da. This lot, multi-million pound. I mean, Matt Hancock's mate in the pub. I mean, getting some sort of big contract. It's just like, no, there's stuff going on there that I think really does stink.
Yeah. Like the Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the curtain.
Hey?
Like the Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the curtain, what's really going on.
Well, I think you need to look behind the curtain. I mean, that's, particularly in the modern age. And the trouble is, you mentioned Trump. I think that we end up with politicians like Trump and Johnson when we give up on politics.
Mm.
But that's really, really, really dangerous, when you get really, what I think both of them, bad people in really senior positions in important countries. That is so bad for the world.
Yeah. Do you think with like Brexit and Trump, the way it happened was because people weren't necessarily, I don't want to say they didn't know what they were voting for, but it was so two radical different. They were both very different. And both people that perhaps weren't satisfied with how the country in the UK and how the America was run at the time for whatever reason.
Yeah,
they thought, this is the change. It's it's something that's different, and perhaps it's appealing because it's different, although it's the unknown.
Well, there was a thing on Channel 4 News last night. Yeah, it was, and they were talking to some people who'd voted Tory for the first time. Mm-hmm. And one of them actually said that, I liked Boris Johnson because he always seemed so positive and he was very humorous, right? And then he says, but I'm looking at him now and thinking, I don't really want a comedian. So, I mean, I think the thing about people not knowing what they voted for, when it comes to Brexit, I mean, that is beyond dispute, mm-hmm. right? Because, and when I say that, they knew what they were voting for in terms of the promises that were being made, right? But they didn't. I'm absolutely convinced if they'd known that what has transpired since in the last 4 years, right, that's a whole Olympiad, and it's still not done. If they'd known, there's no way that millions of people who voted for it, there's no way that they still have voted for it. And the reason why the Brexit people were so desperate to stop a second referendum, because I think they know they're lost. And then with Trump, same thing, lots of false promises, but make people feel good, make America great again. I'm going to bring back the coal mines. No, you're not. I'm going to, you lost your job because of globalization or because of Obama. I'm going to make sure you get that job back. No, you're not. Even, Johnson now, he sort of, day after day, it's another big promise that's probably not going to get met. And so I think that, look, I'm not pretending that, with the Brexit thing, there were lots of things that were real issues that people weren't happy with. But funny enough, I'm just doing at the moment, I'm editing volume 8 in my diaries, and it covers the period when Cameron called the referendum. So it's not hindsight on my part. I said, right, where go? Why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. There's no massive pressure from it other than the political pressure within your own party and UKIP. Deal with that on the merits, take them on, have the argument. But, I'll keep them quiet by giving them a referendum. Well, look where that's ended.
Yeah.
Absolute disaster for the country, in my view.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, what do you think that Boris is true?
Johnson, call him Johnson.
Boris Johnson. Johnson. Mr. Johnson. Prime Minister Johnson.
I don't mind Mr. Johnson, but the Boris thing is part of it.
Yeah.
It's all just an act.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think his stance of Brexit really was? Because wasn't he originally a Remainer?
I've got no idea, honestly. Yeah. There's no point asking me what he thinks. But what I do know is that he's a bad bloke. He's a bad guy who only really thinks about himself. I'm not saying that he doesn't, I'm not saying he's not sort of patriotic, wants Britain to do well, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, when he was a journalist, and I knew him well when he was a journalist, we were sort of rivals in the political media. And then when I was working at Number 10, he was a journalist, sort of, throwing the odd brick and what have you. But it's always been a game. It's a game. Life is a game for him.
Yeah.
And the game in journalism was to become an editor and to write columns and to get well connected. The game in politics was to become prime minister. Brexit was a tool in that. Brexit was the pawn. The country's the pawn.
Yeah.
So that's what I think of him. I think he's a complete charlatan. And I think the other thing that's happened, on his watch is this normalization of lying. I don't know what we do about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, where do you think it went wrong for, Mr. Johnson becoming in power? It seemed that Labour were onto a good thing. I really thought Labour, when Theresa May was in power, I really thought if there's going to be an election, Labour are really going to do this. And that, but at some point, I don't know if it was their stance, they were kind of on the fence with the Brexit thing.
No, I honestly don't think this is too complicated. I think that, look, I just think the country decided about Jeremy Corbyn the moment he became leader. He's not going to be prime minister. I think sometimes I think that you sense what the country's thinking. And look, he got close against Theresa May because back then the general view was, the conventional wisdom was, there's no way that Labour can win. And I think Labour did well. I think he fought a much better campaign than people thought he would. I think there were sort of Labour policies that people thought, taken standalone like that. But I don't think people thought he was going to win. And then I think that when he was up against Johnson, there was then people thought he could win. And I think that really worked against Labour. Because I felt that, right from the word go, that the country just wasn't going to have him. I just felt that so strongly. And you've got to listen when you're out and about. You hear the same, when you hear the same thing. I've talked about doing my diaries now. It's like, I'm afraid that when I like Ed Miliband, I think he's a good guy, but I think the country decided day one, virtually, wrong guy.
Yeah. Do you have more?
And I think it's so hard to shift that. Anyway, I'm sick to death talking about politics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, I think Keir Starmer would do a lot better anyway. I've got faith in him. Talking about more positive things, really. Captain Tom, that was a brilliant news story. Has it been nice seeing, although it's been a really weird year for us, a really difficult year, has it been nice to kind of see those, because, have you been able to sort of appreciate things that, for me, like the NHS is something that I love, but I really, really appreciate this year just to know the work they're doing, and you hear stories about Captain Tom. Are there things, football for general, just going to a football game, are there things that you felt like you've took for granted that, wow, like I've really sort of missed having those things?
I don't think I would take it for granted. I'm with you on the National Health Service. I think it's an amazing institution, and I think it has kind of done well. And yeah, any big crisis though always throws up kind of interesting and quirky and unexpected things.
Yeah.
And Captain Tom's definitely one of them. I think Marcus Rashford's another one. I think the way that he's 22 years of age, so easy in that kind of world just to think, right, I've made it. I'll think about my next car, my next watch, my next girlfriend, my next this, my next that, or I'll just keep my head down and be a great footballer. But no, he got engaged and he got involved, and he's done it in a way that is, he's really made a difference. So I think that's been impressive. And then I think that, my daughter was saying last night that I hadn't even followed this story, but about some guy in America who was skateboard listening to Fleetwood Mac.
All right.
Did you follow the story?
No, I've not. No.
And he's drinking cranberry juice, and he's just on a skateboard, and he's filming himself. And the film was just a short film, right, of him sort of lip syncing to Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
And it's just gone absolutely massive, right, on TikTok or one of those things. And what it's done is it's like there's just been this massive interest in Fleetwood Mac amongst younger people born of this, right? And then Mick Fleetwood, Grace was showing me last night, Mick Fleetwood then did one himself on a skateboard, drinking cranberry juice, listening to one of his own songs, looking quite old, grey-haired. So stuff like that's been good. And I think you always get that. You always get that in any kind of crisis period. You're always going to get little stories that come up and cheer people up. And yeah, Captain Tom was brilliant.
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, you said listen to music, don't listen to the news. What kind of music do you sort of chill to?
I play the bagpipes, and I
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I play the bagpipes, and I listen to bagpipe music quite a lot as well. What do I listen to? At the moment, I am mainly listening to German stuff, just because when I'm on it, right? But generally, what are my kind of Elvis? I listen to a lot of Elvis. Mm-hmm. Jack Brel, do you know Jack Brel, Belgian singer?
Yeah, heard of him. Yeah.
A lot of Motown.
Oh, I'm a massive Motown fan.
Yeah,
massive.
a lot of Motown. I'm not massive on classical music. Fiona isn't, so I listen to quite a lot of that just because she has it on.
Yeah,
she's sort of quite a Radio 3 fan, and she loves opera, so that's sometimes on. I'm not big on it, although I'm a very good friend of one of the world's best opera singers at the moment, an Albanian lady called Manela Yaho. She's absolutely brilliant. Oh, nice. So we'll go and see her when she's in town. And then what else do I listen to? I love ABBA.
ABBA, bit of a.
I love ABBA.
Yeah.
What am I listening to recently? I listened to another French singer called France Gall, who died last year. So I've sort of got back into her since she died. Bob Marley, love Bob Marley.
Bob Marley, yeah.
I have. When I'm. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't listen to music when I'm out cycling, obviously, but if I did, I do a bit of, I would do a lot of shuffle.
Shuffle, yeah. No, I have when I'm driving, I tend to have my Motown playlist on. A bit of Smokey Robinson. Can't beat it, can you? Okay.
No, Motown. There's I'll tell you the other thing I did. When I was traveling, I went to Australia. Emirates have got this thing. Maybe other airlines have got it, but Emirates have got this thing. Every number one ever.
Wow.
I went through. So I started right at the start, and I got up to about 1980 by the time I got off the plane. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So you saw that you had like the evolution of music as you were on the flight.
Yeah, it is. It's really it's interesting, and it's also it's extraordinary how many, number one hits from singers you sort of have a vague memory of them, but actually just gone,
Yeah.
Whereas others, there was one period where it was like Cliff Richard, week after week after week, Cliff Richard and the Shadows, week after week after week after week. Yeah. And then you have other periods, then you have the Beatles and Elvis and So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, my family's a massive Beatle mania family. I mean,
Really?
well, yeah, yeah, massive. I'm trying to think what their first number one was. Was it From Me to You or something? Oh, I'm trying to think what their
I
first
can't
number one.
remember. I can't.
The
I tell you
Beatles.
what, I've got a mate, Paul Fletcher, who used to play for Burnley,
Yeah.
and he and I, we see each other a lot. We actually wrote a novel together about football called Saturday Bloody Saturday. He's a top bloke. He is. I'm sure he won't mind me telling you, and I don't care if he does or he doesn't. But he has got a Beatles tattoo on his left buttock.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
None of my family have gone that far,
and his
thankfully.
house is absolutely stuffed with Beatles memorabilia.
It's crazy. Yeah.
They are. I mean, the Beatles are incredible. I love phenomena like that. It's like, when you think about, okay, let's assume we get through this pandemic and the world resets itself, and let's assume climate change gets sorted. And, I think it's an open question, but let's assume that the world is kind of here in an interesting habitable form in 200 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, people will still be talking about Shakespeare. They'll still be listening to Mozart, Beethoven, but, of all the kind of cultural figures of the period that we're living through, then it's really interesting sometimes to think, well, who are the ones who will be in that league,
Oh, yeah. No, it's an interesting thing
And
to
I
think.
think it's the Beatles. I think the Beatles. I think maybe J.K. Rowling. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But definitely the Beatles.
Were you a big Queen fan? Do you like Queen?
I was, yeah, I was, and I do actually have Queen. There's a lot of Queen on my playlist.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of
Not
Queen.
least, I like to ride my bicycle. Um,
Of course. Yeah.
and I thought the recent Queen film, I thought was brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was a Queen fan, and yeah, I love all that era. There was so much good stuff. But I think that I do think the Beatles will be one of those cultural phenomena that are with us, for eternity,
Mm-hmm.
like Shakespeare and like Mozart.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as well, like sort of post-COVID life, if there'll be this kind of like renaissance of creative people. Whether it be theatre or I mean, music, new musicians.
Well, I mean, I do worry. One of the things I worry about in terms of the arts is just that they've been absolutely battered, and I think that it's a bit like football. The top ones will be okay,
Yeah.
but a lot down below is going to be a real struggle to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, these terrible periods in life, whether it's famine or pandemic or war or poverty or economic crisis, whatever, they do tend to, part of the comeback tends to be a kind of a cultural response that we don't always predict.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got no doubt there'll be a lot of good cultural stuff come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you sound like you keep writing all the time. And obviously, you got your new books out, Living Better. But like, it sounds like you're writing your diaries. Are you doing any sort of other form of writing as well, or anything?
Well, I do. I've done a lot. I've actually done way more sort of journalist writing, I mean commentating in lockdown. I've written something for somebody virtually every day.
Brilliant.
And I do my stuff for GQ, for the New European. I do my blog sort of intermittently, but yeah, I find writing. There's one of sorry to keep plugging my books, but might as well.
Do it.
This one, Winners, right? There's a line in there from Marilyn Monroe, Think in Ink.
Think in Ink.
He wrote a poem called Think in Ink, and that's what I do. I think in ink.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about the reason that's there is because I'm doing a speech next week, and it's all about kind of strategy and strategic development stuff. There's an awful lot in that book about that. So, and that's what I do. I think in ink.
Brilliant. Yeah. So with Living Better, what was the sort of motivation to write that? Was it just kind of like going through your experience, thinking, you want to kind of share them? Was it just being able to sort of bring it to the conversation for people to pick up and read it?
I mean, both of those things, but I think I find it very hard to answer the question, why do you... I've written 16 books, right, since I left 10. Now, the diaries kind of take care of themselves. That was just, they're there. So it's transcribing them, editing them, publishing them. And as I say, I'm on to volume 8 now. and then I've done 4 novels, and I've done that sort of book, the winner's book, and now this. So why I've done them at that time, I don't really know. But to give you a kind of factual answer, I did a TV documentary on my depression, and there was so much stuff that we did in the research and the filming, and that never made it, just because it was like a 1-hour program, cut. And so I just thought, there's so much stuff there. I wonder if I could sort of, redo it and repackage it into a book. And then I just thought, well, maybe I could do that and tell my own story in greater depth than before, about my family background and mental illness in the family and all that kind of thing, and then go into this sort of exploration of how different people and different societies and different cultures and different scientists and different hospitals, how different ways of dealing with depression. And it just kind of evolved into a book. And in terms of what I want for it, I want people who don't get depression to understand what it's like, because I think often they don't. I want people who, one of the best chapters in the book is Fiona, my partner, writing about what it's like living with me when I'm depressed. I want people who don't get depression, but who know people have depression, to maybe zone in on that, because I think she gives some really good insights into how to look after herself when I'm not well, as well as sort of looking out for me. And then the other thing I wanted to do is, in a sense, it's part of this broader campaign to try and change the way we think about mental illness. It's all of those things, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there a point with your mental health that there's a really striking quote I believe you said, is like, I believe you said, I've learned to live with my enemy with depression. Was there a point for you where when was it at your worst, like with your depression? When was it at its
my mental
point?
health was when my mental health was at its worst was 86, when I had a psychotic breakdown. That was really bad. And then my depression, it's hard to tell really, because I've had various periods when it's been intermittently really bad. But a turning point, I think, was 2005, when I was really bad then. It was the gaps between the depressions were getting narrower and narrower. It almost felt like it was just one long roll. So that was pretty bad. I'd say that was the worst.
Yeah. Because it's weird how the thoughts of, like, with me, like, I've been in this sort of muck of depression where it's just been awful, and you're just kind of going week by week by week, going through this depression month after month. And then suddenly, when it gets to a point where you start considering, is life worth living? Do I want to keep this kind of monstrosity of life going? And you're considering a kind of looking for a way out now. It's weird how that kind of just sneaks up, because it doesn't feel like it was a process for me. It didn't feel like it was like it just felt like I was dealing with depression for so long, and suddenly this thought came in, there's a way out, shall I do it or not? And it's weird how the thoughts of suicide can just come up so quickly, just those sort of, it's not like a long process for, I don't know what it's like for other people. For my experience, I know I'm not an expert on mental health, but you're experts of your own stories. And for me it was just weird how these suicidal thoughts were just it seemed like they came out of nowhere. I don't know what it was like for you, if you sort of had that contemplation.
I've had both. I'd say if I had to track them all the sort of different depressive episodes I've had both, but I'd say far more of the slow build-up.
Okay.
Just slowly feeling that I'm not kind of quite right, and then getting worse, and then very occasionally I've had what I call the kind of light switch. The light switch depressions, where not always instant like that, but for example, when I wake up, I might have gone to bed feeling fine, and I wake up and I'm just not quite there, and I know I've gone behind the eyes, and I find this sort of suicidal ideation stuff. I find that happens when I've been feeling like that for a bit, and then I'm I'm also stressed, and I'm also got maybe a few issues that I'm trying to resolve. Some of them will be, I say in the book that I can lie awake at night, and I can go from catastrophizing about climate change or Brexit being a disaster or Trump being awful or whatever, and all that's kind of, really sort of weighing on me. And then suddenly my mind will switch to, oh, I've got a trip tomorrow, and I'm away for 3 nights, right? So I'm doing this and doing that. How many shirts? How many coat hangers? And that sort of stuff. I can go from those massive things to like really trivial stuff, but the intensity of them is just the same.
Yeah. No,
and that's when I call it I call it downward hill slalom rumination, where I'm just kind
quite
of
the term. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. I mean, do you notice that it affects your sleep or your eating? Because for me, it even feels like it's one extreme or the other with me. It feels like sometimes I'm like not sleeping at all because I'm just like in bed thinking like, it could be trivial things like you said, like that cloak hangers or whatever it is. And then sometimes I feel like I'm sleeping way too much. So I don't know if you have those.
Yeah, I've got both. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's when one of the things I measure whether I'm kind of okay is whether it is my sleep. Or sleeping, like, getting to bed reasonably early, not going to bed too late, sleeping straight through for, a good number of hours, then I know that I'm better up here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one of the first things that goes for me is sleep, not sleeping at night. And then maybe, I might just be sitting here writing, I suddenly nod off, and then other times kind of can't wake up.
Yeah.
So yeah, sleep's big. I mean, then getting your sleep patterns right is so important.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've tried to talk with something a bit more positive before we wind up. I mean, you thought about writing anything about Burnley, like a Burnley book?
Well, I did the novel with the Burnley player, and a lot of that is, I mean, it's fictional, but it's a lot of Burnley's in that. I wouldn't do it. No, you'd be amazed how many books about Burnley there already are.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of them over there. Still Here is by a guy called Dave Burnley, who went to every. I've been thinking about him a lot because he's one of those guys who never, ever, ever, ever misses a game, ever.
Nice.
Since the 70s. Then there's one called The Clarets Chronicles, which is, I've got them all over. There's loads of them. So no, I don't think I would. No, I don't. I think there's people who can do that better than me. I like to. So I like to, when I'm writing a book. It's like okay, loads of people could write a book about winners, okay, but I can write a book about winners that incorporates being part of winning election campaigns, and I can get out and talk to people in sport and business and. I can so that I like to think not many people could have written a book like that. Yeah. And likewise with the depression book, I think right, well, okay, lots of people can write a book about depression, but I can write a book about depression which mixes all the things that are in there and all the different, So I like. Whereas a book about Burnley, what would my book about Burnley be that somebody else couldn't do?
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. Have you read some of Matt Haig's books? I mean, they've been brilliantly written. Yeah, terrific reads.
I saw he was absolutely chuffed the other day because. Dolly Parton did one of those interviews and said, "What are you reading at the moment?" She said, "Matt Haig's book."
Yeah, no, his books have been really helpful. Really good. I mean, so going back to Burnley, I suppose, other than St James's Park, what is the best away ground that you've visited?
I really like Goodison.
Goodison, okay.
Yeah, I do like St James's Park. Actually, I do.
Yeah.
I like showing off, going up the steps of the away end, overtaking all the people younger than me who are gathered at flight 23. I really like Goodison. I'm not a massive fan of the kind of new build. Some of them are good. The Tottenham Stadium's really impressive.
Yeah, no, I've not seen that yet.
Yeah, I think if I was only allowed one away ground, I'd go for Goodison.
Goodison, yeah, because they've still got like there's a lot of history about that ground, right? Like, it's like a nice.
It's like you go in and the away end is still like I don't think they've got the clicking turnstiles. They might have, but there's like a little program cellar in a box inside, and it's all a bit higgledy-piggledy. And yeah, I like Goodison.
Yeah, no, that's a nice one. Yeah, Burnley's got a nice vibe to it. I feel. I think it's something about those kind of traditional old sort of football grounds.
Here's a quiz question for you. Which of the two? There's only two clubs that have never in the football league that I'm not talking about the new clubs, right? Have just come into the league, but
Right.
Hagen and Redbridge. But of all the other clubs, right, from going way back, only two have never moved ground. Which are they?
That is a question. I mean, Notts County. Are they won? No. Everton won. No. Burnley. Are they won? Burnley.
Burnley's always the answer to my question.
Yeah, Burnley, and I'm trying to think who else the other one might be.
Same part of the world, but not Blackburn.
I passed. You have to tell me because
Preston.
Preston. No, I wouldn't have got that. Preston.
Here's another one for you. Which are the only two clubs that have won all 4 divisional titles?
These are really good ones. 4 divisional. So is that Premiership? Is that as well?
No, like first division, second division, third division, fourth division.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to guess Burnley's one.
Correct.
Burnley. No, Newcastle. No, I don't think Newcastle won some of the older ones.
Most of the big clubs have never been down the bottom.
Yeah, I was going to say. No, I'm trying. Nottingham Forest. No,
not a bad guess. They're in the Premier League at the moment, doing quite well. In a very Portuguese kind of way.
Oh, Wolverhampton.
Yeah,
Wolverhampton. Yeah, that's I've been there. That's not a bad stadium actually. Wolverhampton. I've been there a few times. I give Burnley, Wolverhampton.
That's it.
Was that? I thought you said 4, like 2. Okay, the two that ones it. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, when Newcastle did go in the Championship, it was kind of nice to go into some of the other experiences, some of the other grounds for sure. I mean, that was the one takeaway.
When you were first down there, was Keegan manager?
No, Keegan gate quit because he had the bust up with Mike Ashley, so we had Chris Houghton for the first time we went.
No, way back.
Way back. Okay.
Your away kit was.
Oh yes, when we got promoted the first time to into Premier League. Yeah.
Who was the manager then?
I think it was Keegan. Yeah. Keegan, yeah.
And I went to see Newcastle at Brentford. I can't remember why, but I did. Yeah. You were wearing yellow top and blue shorts, I think. And God, your support that day was unbelievable.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I've been in with the Geordies and I've like got 4 layers on and I'm freezing. I'm moaning to my mate, I'm bloody freezing. Then you see a couple of rows of me, it's got his shirt off with his Newcastle tattoos, like doing this. I'm like, he's an absolute nutter. How many brown ales has he had? Yeah, it's been great talking to you today, Alastair. I mean, what's kind of been going on for you 2021? Apart from the German tour, we're going to be doing that, I'm sure. But what have you kind of got planned?
I don't know really. I'm in a bit of a hiatus at the moment because I've got to kind of decide. You know, I can do what I'm doing, and I can bang away about politics, but in the end, part of me thinks I'm banging my head against a brick wall. I'll carry on doing the stuff that I do abroad. Mm-hmm. What I do here, I just don't know. I've got another couple of books and a couple of film projects in the pipeline. Yeah, I mean, I've got enough to keep busy with, but I'm not. Honest answer is, I'm not 100% sure at the moment.
Brilliant.
I'm hibernating until the new year.
Yeah, we'll see.
Not hibernating, cogitating.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see. I'm sure something exciting's around the corner. But I'm looking forward to reading your new book, Living Better. And I can't wait. Good to know you're doing okay. And can't wait to see what happens with you in the future.
All right, mate.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.